of self-discovery. This is the story of a mother who gave everything for her son, only to find out that the love she poured into him was taken for granted. As she uncovers a chilling betrayal, she must find the strength to take control of her own life, facing the painful truths about her family and herself. Join us as we follow her path toward empowerment and freedom. Subscribe to Life Stories to begin today's journey. I used to believe that love could cure all, that a mother's love could transform even the most reckless of hearts. My son, Ethan, was everything to me. I had poured my heart and soul into raising him, always believing that one day he would appreciate the sacrifices I had made for him. But as I sat there one evening, the phone pressed to my ear. I felt a chill creep into my heart, one that had nothing to do with the coldness of the night. I had just sent Ethan a large sum of money, $330 to be exact. He needed it for his wife, Sophia, who was pregnant. Of course, I wanted to help. I had always been there for him, no matter the circumstance, no matter the cost. I had helped him with everything from university fees to paying off his gambling debts. Each time he found himself in a hole, I was the one who dug him out. But as I spoke to him on the phone, trying to offer my usual words of encouragement, a pit formed in my stomach. There was something off in his voice, something that betrayed the warmth and gratitude he had once shown. "Of course, Mom," he had said, his tone upbeat as if everything were perfectly fine. "I'm going to be a dad now. You better believe I'll take good care of Sophia and our little bundle of joy." His words were smooth, rehearsed. He sounded like the perfect son, the perfect husband. But as soon as he said those words, the phone call shifted. "All right, Mom. Got to run. Got some stuff going on over here," he added quickly, without even a hint of gratitude. Not a "thank you." Not a "love you." I swallowed the disappointment that rose in my throat, forcing myself to reply softly, "'Kay then, love you sweetheart." But before I could hang up, I heard it. It was Sophia's voice. I froze, my heart sinking. "Finally, the old woman sent the money," she said, her voice light, dismissive. In that moment, everything I thought I knew about my son shattered. He had always been reckless with money, always coming to me for handouts. I had told myself that he would grow out of it, that someday he would be grateful. But now, as I listened to them laugh about how they were going to spend my money, I realized the truth was much colder than I had ever imagined. I was nothing to him, nothing more than a source of money, an asset to be used until it was no longer useful. I had always known that Ethan wasn't perfect. But this betrayal was deeper than anything I had ever expected. I had helped him when he was down. I had given him everything I could. But now, I saw him for what he truly was. A man who saw me as nothing more than a cash machine. The phone call ended, and I was left standing in the living room, the words echoing in my mind. Sophia's voice had been full of mockery, and Ethan had said nothing. He hadn't defended me, hadn't even seemed to care. It was as if I had never mattered to him at all. The love I had so freely given him had turned into something ugly, something unrecognizable. I stood there in silence, my mind spinning. I had been a fool. How could I have been so blind? How could I have loved someone so deeply, only to have that love twisted into something dark? The realization was overwhelming, and for the first time in my life, I didn't know what to do next. What Ethan and Sophia didn't know was that I had begun to make my own plans. I wasn't going to let this betrayal slide. I had been silent for too long, hoping that my love would be enough. But now, I was done. I would no longer be their pawn. I had spent my life caring for them, giving them everything, and it was time for me to take control of my own story. I don't know when it happened, but somewhere between the pain of that phone call and the quiet resolve that followed, I realized something crucial. Love, no matter how deep, doesn't always come back. It doesn't always change the ones you give it to. And sometimes, you have to protect yourself from the very people you've given everything to. As the days went by, I would have to face Ethan and Sophia again. And when that moment came, I was ready. Ready to show them that I was no longer the naive mother they had known. Ready to show them that I was not going to let them take anything else from me, not my love. Not my life. I would fight back, and I would make sure they knew the cost of their cruelty. But for now, I would bide my time. They wouldn't see it coming. The truth was, I had already started planning my move. It wasn't long before Ethan and Sophia showed up at my doorstep. After years of living alone, the sound of a knock on my door felt strange. Almost foreign. I had become used to the quiet of my home, the soft hum of the everyday. But there they were, standing on my doorstep, as if nothing had happened. Ethan grinned, his usual cheerful expression plastered on his face. "Hi, Mom," he said, handing me a bag of something and pushing it into my arms without a second thought. "Had a free day. Figured I'd drop by and check on you." His words were casual, as if the past few weeks hadn't happened, as if he hadn't just insulted me in the most heartless way. And then there was Sophia. She chimed in, her voice as sweet as ever. "Helen, you have no idea. Ethan talks about you all the time at home. He's just been so swamped with work, he hasn't had the chance to visit." The performance was flawless. If I didn't know better, I would have believed every word. But I had seen through their act. I had lived through enough to know when someone was playing a part. And they were doing it well. I smiled faintly and invited them in. "It's good to see you both," I said softly, hiding the bitterness that lingered in the pit of my stomach. As soon as Ethan stepped into the living room, his tone shifted. It was subtle, but it was there. He gestured for me to sit down, his voice trying to sound nonchalant. "Mom, don't just stand there. Let's chat a little." And then, almost as if testing the waters, he added, "So, you know Sophia's pregnant, right? The apartment we're in is just way too cramped. We were thinking maybe we could move in with you for a while." I didn't answer right away. I simply looked at them, a smile playing on my lips. Sophia jumped in, her voice full of that rehearsed sorrow, as if playing the role of a suffering daughter-in-law. "It's really been hard, Helen. The place is so tight. And now with the baby on the way, it's just not healthy for me or the baby." She sighed dramatically, her eyes meeting mine with that same fake sincerity. They had been eyeing my house for some time. I could tell. It was a large, quiet place in the city center, a property that had appreciated significantly over the years. The house was worth more than $1 million by now. And Ethan knew that very well. I nodded slightly, my voice calm. "Of course, you can stay," I said, though inside, a small part of me was crumbling. Ethan's eyes lit up, but there was hesitation in his face. He pushed a little further, his words casual but calculated. "Well, since we're going to be living here anyway, maybe it makes sense to put the house in my name. That way I can handle the property taxes. The maintenance stuff, take it off your plate." Sophia quickly followed up, her voice sweet, almost condescending. "Exactly, Helen, we're family, right? You've done enough. You should be relaxing now. Not worrying about chores and bills." I stared at them, my mind racing. They thought they had me fooled. But they didn't realize how well I knew them now. I had spent my life giving and giving, always hoping for something in return. But now I saw it for what it was. A game. A game they thought they were winning. I forced a smile, one that I hoped was as convincing as theirs. "Sure," I said softly, keeping my voice steady. Ethan and Sophia didn't hesitate. They had expected this. The relief on their faces was too obvious. They thought they had succeeded. But I wasn't done yet. From that moment on, the atmosphere in the house shifted. Their behavior toward me became disturbingly sweet. Like a picture-perfect portrait of the ideal family. Sophia started waking up early to make breakfast for me. Ethan, who hadn't lifted a finger in years, suddenly began cleaning the kitchen. Every word, every gesture was soaked in sweetness. And I watched it all unfold. They were playing their parts to perfection. But I knew it was all a facade. This was just another act in their ongoing performance. The deeper I fell into their trap, the closer I came to exposing them for who they truly were. I was no longer the naive woman who believed in unconditional love. No, I had seen through the lies. And I was ready to make them pay for every moment they had taken from me. But for now, I played along, letting them think they had control. I was the one in charge now. It was only a matter of days before their true intentions began to show. Ethan and Sophia were experts at manipulation. And I had given them enough rope to hang themselves. They had moved into my home. And with each passing day, their demands grew bolder, their masks slipping more often. The atmosphere in the house shifted from cordial to something far colder and more entitled. One morning, after a few days of this pretense, Sophia approached me with her usual sugary smile. "Helen," she said softly, her tone sweet but calculated. "How's the house transfer coming along? We're really looking forward to it." She spoke as though it were already a done deal. As though my house was no longer mine but merely a stopover on their journey to claim what they believed was rightfully theirs. I sighed quietly, pretending to be just as concerned as they were. "Still needs a few more days," I said, my voice steady. "The process is a bit more complicated than I expected." Sophia's smile stiffened for a moment. But it was only a brief flicker before she recovered with a laugh. "That's fine. No rush. We'll wait." They had no choice but to wait. And I could feel the satisfaction rising inside me. They had no idea how long I had been planning this moment. As days passed, their behavior became more and more patronizing. Ethan and Sophia acted as though they were doing me a favor by simply being in my home, playing the roles of the devoted son and daughter-in-law. But I knew it was all just a performance. It was never about family. It was about ownership. About controlling everything that I had worked so hard to build. Ethan was like a parasite, feeding off whatever I had given him, never once considering the emotional toll it took on me. Then one evening, as I prepared dinner in the kitchen, I overheard something I will never forget. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop, but their words pierced through the thin walls, cutting into my heart like a knife. Ethan's voice was low, cold, and calculating. "As soon as she signs over the house, we kick her out," he said, his words dripping with contempt. Sophia giggled softly, barely containing her excitement. "Exactly, and by then, all her inheritance should be ours anyway." There it was, the truth. I had been nothing more than a stepping stone to them, a source of wealth to be drained dry. My fingers trembled as I clutched the kitchen counter, the cold shock of betrayal running through me. I had raised him, loved him, and believed in him, and yet, in that moment, I saw him for what he truly was, a selfish, greedy man who had no regard for the sacrifices I had made. I didn't cry, I didn't scream. Instead, I felt a strange calm settle over me. The love I had once given to Ethan was no longer the same. It had turned to ashes in my heart, and I was finally ready to let go. The next day, I began putting my plan into action. I wasn't going to let them take everything from me. If they thought they could use me, then they had another thing coming. I had already made up my mind to take control of the situation. And I wasn't going to be anyone's fool anymore. That night, when Ethan and Sophia were asleep, I sat quietly in my room, thinking about everything I had given to them over the years. And then, I made my decision. It was time to end this farce. Ethan would no longer be my son. Sophia would no longer be my daughter-in-law. I had given them enough chances, enough love, and they had taken it all without a second thought. Now, it was my turn to take back what was mine. I couldn't predict what would happen next. But I knew this, whatever it was, it would be the end of the road for them. And for me, it would be the beginning of something new. A life free of deceit. A life where I was finally living for myself. As I closed the door behind me, Ethan and Sophia still standing on the doorstep, shock and disbelief in their eyes, I felt a strange sense of relief. The weight that had been pressing on my chest for so long was finally lifted. I had done it. I had taken back control. I was no longer the naive mother clinging to the hope of a love that would never be returned. I had freed myself from the chains of their manipulation. But as I walked away from the door, I felt something even more profound than relief, peace. For the first time in years, I felt free. The house that had once been a battleground for their greed was now mine again. I had no more debts to pay. No more sacrifices to make. The love I had given to Ethan and Sophia would no longer be used as a tool for their advantage. I had given enough. In the days that followed, I focused on my own happiness. I spent more time doing the things I had long neglected, walking in the park, visiting friends, rediscovering hobbies that had once brought me joy. And then, one day, I met David, a kind, gentle man who, unlike my son, didn't want anything from me except my company. We began spending more time together, enjoying simple moments, and I realized that, after all these years, I had finally found a place of warmth and love that was real. The story of my life had come to a close with Ethan and Sophia, but my new chapter was just beginning. It wasn't the life I had imagined, but it was mine, and for the first time in a long while, I was truly living for myself. Don't forget to subscribe to the Life Stories channel for more touching stories and life lessons.